this afternoon. He is our sheriff of Rockdale County. And last but not least, the CEO of Rockdale County, Mr. Richard Odom, is also here. And so I want to thank them for their presence. To your left is a table where some of my staffers from the district office, which is located on Hillendale Drive, right off of Panola Road and I-20. We have a staff of about 8 in that office, and we have 5 of them here today, among which is the district director, Ms. Kathy Register, Kathy Register is the one that keeps the ship operating. And everyone else around the table, Andy Phelan, who is my communications director, Carol, I want to say Husstein, I'm sorry, Carol Mumford, a lifelong native of Rockdale County.
No, only 10 years.
Okay. Feels like you've been in.
Yeah, it seems like my life.
But she has tentacles in Rockdale. Her daddy, her brother's a Superior Court judge, and she lives in Rockdale. She is my intergovernmental affairs person. And then Eric Hubbard is seated beside her. He is my community outreach person. And then Peter Butts is my kind of a technical guy. What is your
System administrator and director of security.
All right. He's been with me since
He's
been with me since I came to Congress, but I still don't remember his title. But he does a lot of great work for us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of whether or not you all agree with me and the issues that I address, you may not agree, but I tell you, we're still here to serve you. If you've got problems with any federal government agencies, and you don't seem to be making any headway, and you need a extra hand, someone who can push your file up to the top and get it dealt with, that is what your congressional office does. That's called constituent services. And so, basically, I live and die through constituent services. These folks are the ones that serve the people. So we're there when you need us. So don't hesitate when you think that we can be of assistance to you. They don't know what kind of politics you have, and they frankly don't care. The only thing they care about is making sure that they do a good job for you all, and we keep statistics, and we know how many people we've helped. We know how many people are satisfied, how many people are dissatisfied. Our whole thing on the district level is to take care of the people back home. So I hope that you all will consider that. Thank you, Vince, for your invitation to come. Vince has, despite his disagreement with just about everything that I stand for, he has always reached out to my office to let us know where he stands on the issue. So I think he has taken it upon himself to represent the views of the folks that probably are here tonight. So I want to thank you, Vince, for your courage and for your tenacity. And I thank you for your kind invitation to come to talk to you all today. I've been trying to get out on this side of the county ever since I've had this part of the county to represent. So I appreciate being able to come out here. And with that, well, I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally, born and raised. My dad was a high-level government official in the Bureau of Prisons, and my mother was a second-grade school teacher. And so that's where I was born and raised, and I came south when I was 17 to go to college. I did 4 years of college at Clark College, now known as Clark Atlanta University. And then I left here and went to Texas for law school for 3 years, and then I came back because I decided before I left for Texas that I definitely wanted to start my career and start my family here in the South, in Georgia. And so that's what I did. Came back, got married in end of '79, still married, 34 years later, getting ready to be 35. We have 2 kids. They are 25 and 23, soon to be 24, boy and a girl. And so that's me. So from that, I will be ready to address your questions. And if you don't mind, if we can sit down, is that all right?
Most of you remember Neil Boyce, when he had a radio program. Just shortly after Congressman got elected, one of his office staff members, and I can't remember his name, was on Neil's program, and they were talking about the fair tax. And if I recall the conversation correctly, Neil asked his representative if Hank Johnson wouldn't mind coming on the radio program and talk further about the fair tax. The representative said, sure, Bill set it up. Well, it never happened. However, it did get me to thinking about, well, we've got a new congressman in Congress. I'm interested in the fair tax. And so I wrote an email to Hank about the fair tax. Now, let me say a few words about it. Now, here's the book that Neil Boyce wrote with John Linder, who John Linder, as you all know, put the fair tax together. And one of the things that that I liked about it was its features. If passed, the fair tax will repeal individual income taxes, alternative minimum taxes, corporate and business taxes, capital gains taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and self-employment taxes. Now, we're going to get to this other topic later on down the road, but I don't know how many of you are aware that as of July 1st, as part of the Affordable Care Health Passage Act, starting July 1st, income taxes went from 35 to 39.6%. Payroll taxes, which includes Social Security, Medicare, from 37.4 to 52.2%. Capital gains from 15 to 28%. Dividend taxes from 15 to 39.6%. Estate taxes from 0 to 55%. And that depends on how much of your estate is, and what your estate is worth. And this has nothing to do with the 1st of July, but included in the taxes as part of the package, there's a medical device tax of 2.3%. Now, I don't know how they figure that, because I understand that the 2.3% is applied to these corporations before they even make a profit. I don't know how they figure that. Anyway, the fair tax book is still available. I checked it on the web today. It's anywhere from $9 to $16, depending on what edition you want to buy. The fair tax first came out in, John Linder introduced it in about 1999 into the Congress. About that time, the federal tax code had about 66,000 pages in it. Now, if you consider this to be about 1,000 pages, and the fair tax is only about 135. But let's, for illustration purposes, say that this is the fair tax legislation, and it's 1,000 pages. The current tax code that's in force now, if that's 1 inch, will come up to here. It's over 72,000 pages now in the tax code. A couple of days ago, Joe Biden said, let me quote if I get this time, it's correct, "Time to change the tax code." That's the first thing I'd probably agree with Joe Biden on. But my question to the congressman is this. I know you've been familiar with it for a number of years now. When I first wrote to you about it, you answered me back. You said that the fair tax code would not be fair to poor folks. I didn't understand that reasoning, but that was one of the reasons that you said. But my question is this. I know you've been involved with discussions with Rob Woodall and some other people regarding the fair tax. So my question is, after having had this much time and experience with it, what is it that you're hesitating about to endorse the fair tax? I know that was a long introduction to get to that one question, but I'll turn it over to the congressman.
Well, since you asked a long question, I'm gonna give you a long answer. Yeah, you know, getting invited to be on the Boyd's show at a time where I was a brand new congressman and pretty much not well versed at what the issues, and certainly not capable of debating Neil Boyd's on the fair tax. I was hesitant about going on his show. And at the time, I really was not physically as strong as I wanted to be in order to deal with Neil Boyd's. But as I got stronger, Neil Boyd's decided to retire. And so I never did get a chance to go on his program. But I sent numerous messages to him, letting him know that he was certainly in my mind, and I looked forward to sitting down and talking with him. And the fair tax, you know, I mean, our tax code, we don't have any disputes about the fact that it is unwieldy, it's voluminous, and it is riddled with loopholes and exceptions that benefit the wealthy at the expense of the working people in this country. And also, America, and by the way, Mr. McBrayer, the school board chair, is here too. Didn't mean to leave you off, sir.
No, that's quite all right.
All right. So since in 1952, the corporations paid about 33% of all tax revenues collected by the federal government. This year, it's about 9%. So the rate of taxation, or the revenues collected from businesses, from corporations, which used to be 33% of net receipts by the federal government, is now 9%. Now, also, we are at a time now where corporate profits have never been stronger. In fact, the Dow today closed at 17,100. Back when President Obama was sworn in on January the 20th of 2009, the Dow closed at 7,100. So it's at 17,000 now. This is during the Obama administration. Also during the Obama administration, 10 million new jobs created.
I disagree with that.
Well, you may, and but I think if you go and fact check, you'll find that statement is accurate. 10 million
How many were lost?
10 million new jobs created under the Obama administration thus far. We lost 8 million jobs during the Bush years and during the Great Recession. But we've had 54 months straight of positive job growth under the Obama administration. Now, what does this have to do with taxation? We have more jobs, but income for working people has remained flat. And when you take into consideration inflationary pressures, middle class has actually lost in terms of the spendable income. It's actually gone backwards. So so what I've told you is that we had a period where taxes from corporations were 33% of the receipts of the federal government. Now it's 9%. Corporate profits have skyrocketed. Net income for the top 1% is about 376% since 1980, gone up 374% since 1979, excuse me, 1979. So top 1% income going up, continuing to go up under the Obama administration. Jobs were lost during the Bush administration, and those job losses had to do with offshoring of jobs. So many companies, due to this tax code, hold on now, due to the tax code, so many companies were incentivized to offshore jobs. So we took away good middle-class jobs from Americans, shipped them overseas so that corporations could get cheaper labor, and as a result, we ended up losing jobs here. The middle class has thus shrunk, and we have more. We've been creating more jobs, but we have more working poor people. Under the Obama administration, we have more people who are eligible for food stamps. And so the net result is that life has gotten tighter for the bottom 99%. It's gotten better for the top 1%. That's not fair. That is a product of our tax code. Now, we won't have tax reform, because even when the Republicans were in power in the House and Senate and the presidency, you did not see any movement on the fair tax. Why? It's because the corporate crowd does not want you to do anything to mess with their loopholes in the tax code. And so the reason why you won't get a change in the tax code is because we can't do campaign finance reform. Now, when we can get all of the corporate money out of the public policy making arena, because the corporations now control who is making the policy by who they choose to represent. And so they represent, or excuse me, by who they choose to support. So the corporations support the Republicans, all right, by a far greater margin than they do Democrats. That's just, I mean, that's indisputable. So Republicans are pretty much attuned to big business. And the bigger the business, the more that they're attuned to it.
Actually, the Democrats were attuned to the big business.
Well, I think if you go and look at the Koch brothers and how much money they are spending on campaign-related and election-related activity, the hundreds of $millions that they have spent has, I don't think any more than 1 or 2% has gone to Democrats. I think that's a fact.
Government Motors all went to Democrats, though.
Huh?
Government Motors and the unions all went to Democrats, didn't go to Republicans, so,
Well,
you know.
well,
compare
of course
apples to
now.
apples.
Now, the unions have been on the decline since 1980, when President Reagan broke the PATCO union, and unions have been on the decline in terms of their memberships, and so if they don't have the members, they don't have the dues checkoffs, which fuel their ability to influence elections, and so no comparison between what the unions put in and what just the Koch brothers. Now, when you put Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, you put Karl Rove in with all of the money that they raised, you know, there's just simply no match. And you will not have change in the tax code unless you change the way that we finance elections, and until you get the corporate money out of the elections. So how do we do that? Well, we have to elect representatives who are strong enough to stand up to the corporate money that is in place to take them out, to defeat them. And so there's not many who have the luxury of being able to do that. I do have that luxury given the makeup of the district that I represent. So, you know, I'm just happy to bear the torch of righteousness to try to get this corporate money out of our political process. And when we do that, then we will be in a position to do comprehensive tax reform. Now, every industrialized nation on the planet has as its base for revenue collection a consumption tax. Every other industrialized nation on the earth depends on a consumption tax as the base of its revenue collections. America is the only one that has the income tax. And from what I just told you earlier, you should understand that the burden of all of the wars, all of the infrastructure, all of the social safety net, all of the FDA, EPA, all of the things that keep the food, water, air quality tight, all of these things that we all benefit from, whether or not you are a individual, a person, or whether or not you're a corporation, you need to pay your fair share. And our corporations, ladies and gentlemen, are not paying their fair share of the tax burden. It has fallen on the working people and the working poor people. We got more poor people that are working and are not making enough money to take care of their responsibilities. And so they still qualify for food stamps, but they're out working every day, sometimes 2 and 3 part-time jobs, and still don't make enough to make ends meet. That is a shame. America should be shamed that while the top 1% are experiencing 370+% net income after tax growth in their disposable income, that the people on the bottom are left with a smaller pie, and it's getting smaller and smaller every day. So until we change that tax code, that's the way it's going to go.
Can I just have something too, like, you know, I look at myself, I got a certain amount of income coming in, that means I can only get a certain amount of income going out. How come the federal government doesn't look and say, well, we get so much income coming in, let's make a budget, because we can't be spending more. It'd be like me going to Social Security or wherever I get my retirement from and say, what you're providing me is inadequate for what I'm spending right now, give me more.
Yeah, the federal government is not like a person or a corporation or business. A government is different. A government has responsibility for. If we didn't have a government that printed money, every government, we moved past the time where we, barter, trade you this for that, so society is much more complex than that. And it starts out in terms of having money, and so there has to be a system of trading, and it's all based on money. And so the government prints the money. No, the corporations can't print money, can't back up money. The country, only a country can do that. And so a country that leads the world did not get there by not spending. A government that leads the world got there by printing money, paying the bills when they fall due, and the country has grown. The people have grown because of the foundation laid down by the government. So, but now we tend to hate the government. We tend to say that the federal government is terrible and it's taking all of our money, and we're not getting anything out of it. But in fact, you are the ones that's paying all of the taxes. Another sector, the corporations, not paying their fair share. So you get frustrated about the way that government is working, and you blame government for it. And that is exactly where the blame lies, with government.
Let me ask you.
And you have the opportunity, the ability to change the government through your vote.
I want to know, I've heard the word fair share from government for a long time. What do you think fair share means? What is it?
In terms of
What
taxes,
Yes.
I tell you, it means a uniform standard that everyone has to.
What figure? Give me a figure, a percentage.
Well, I mean, that's up to the government itself, but
Why is it up to the
point.
government to tell me what the fair share is?
Well, I mean, you elect the government. The government is of, by, and for the people.
Sure it is.
You elect your
You're the elected
representatives.
official, you're supposed to make the laws for us. That's why you go in there. You're supposed to do what you're telling us to do. You're supposed to do it for us. You're not doing it.
I got a
Well,
question, another
no, I
question.
disagree with that. I
No, you're
disagree
wrong.
with that. The
You're the
laws
representative.
that we have in place right now are the laws that have been passed by the people that we have voted into office. Now, we may disagree with the law, but that's how the law became the law. Now, the law will change when you put people in who see it the way that you think it should be. Now,
Then you need to go out, right?
well, no, I'm trying to educate you. I'm
No,
trying to
you
educate
need to be educated to do what you're supposed to do.
I'm here to listen to all of your concerns. You know, I do have my own views on things, but I tell you, if you can convince me that I'm wrong, I stand ready to hear that. I am not so old that I cannot change my opinion about something.
You never have.
Excuse me. You're talking about corporates not paying their fair share. Is it not true that anytime they get their taxes raised, they pass the buck on to us? They raise their prices. Therefore, you can tax them all day long. It's just going to make us even harder to afford their product. Until we can't afford it, then they're going to go out of business.
But then on the other end, the money that they save from their taxes being reduced did not go into reducing the price of the goods or services that you purchase.
And that goes
It
along with
goes-
gasoline as
It-
well.
It goes into the pockets of those who,
Politicians.
no, politicians don't make money. $174,000 a year.
For life.
No, not for life. My pension, when I come out, if I do 20 years, my pension is not gonna be any more than about $1,500 a month.
Not the figures I've seen anyway, so
Huh?
not the figures I've seen, it shows
Yeah, that's
somebody who was elected for one term and got out, that when they got out, they still
That's
received
just
certain
not-
things. We're probably getting off the subject.
That's just not true.
Let me ask one question.
Okay.
That's just not true. There's a lot of misinformation out there. That's just not true.
Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
What are the minimum income requirements for a family of 4 to get food stamps?
I think it's like $23,000 for a family of 4, if I'm not mistaken. It's about $23,000.
If you're wrong.
Yeah, which is not, which is
I think you're wrong.
No, it's in the 20,000, 27,000, in that range there.
Yeah.
Cody?
You mentioned that the corporate receipt reduced from 30% to 9%.
33%.
But we know where tax inversion is going.
Yes.
You know, Burger King moves to Canada because their tax is 24%, US is 35%. Ireland tax is 15%, US is 35%. Many corporations has the office, headquarters in foreign country. Carnival makes a lot of money. The tax code is such that they can make billions of dollars, they don't pay any taxes. Because the tax code is screwed up.
Yeah, well, you know, inversion is where corporations decide to move their headquarters offshore by acquiring or being acquired by a foreign firm, a foreign company. And so then they move offshore to get a lower effective tax rate. But when you consider all of the loopholes in that voluminous tax code that, you know, that was, in this voluminous tax code, all of the loopholes and special provisions for various corporations, individual corporations, not just species of corporations, but individual corporations have their individual loopholes in that tax code. And so if, what I found is that basically where we are now is that businesses are so interested in short-term profits, quarterly profits, and meeting shareholder expectations, that they don't want to pay any taxes. And so whatever they have to do in order to avoid paying taxes, they will. If they don't have enough loopholes in tax code, then inversion is an option for them. And we're seeing them take that more and more. So no way that a corporation is a person, as the Supreme Court has found. A person has a heart and a soul, and a person wants to pay their fair share. A person wants to act fairly and act for the benefit of all. A corporation is just a cold-blooded entity looking to make as much profit as it can. And what we have, ladies and gentlemen, is a culture of greed and stupidity. Because it's stupid for a business, it's crazy for a business to think that if you don't give your employees a living wage, If you don't give your employees a living wage, then they're not gonna be able to purchase your goods and services. That's stupidity, that's ignorance.
People can't get interest in the bank now. They get no interest on their money. But corporations can borrow for no money and invest it. And that's what they're doing, and that's why the big guys are getting richer under Obama's policies.
That is why also the government should not be barred from borrowing money. When you can get money, when you have the kind of credit rating that America has, and given the current,
I don't
Given-
know.
That's why
given-
China owns us.
given the
Answer
comment,
my question, what did you say?
well,
That's why the government should be barred from borrowing money so they can make the rich richer?
no.
Well,
The
that's,
tax code is what makes the rich
Well,
richer.
the Democrats had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency at one time. They did nothing.
Yeah, for 2 years.
Yeah, I know, they did
We
nothing.
did pass the Affordable Care Act.
All these terrible
That
policies.
rate tax.
And they did
The House,
nothing.
the House passed, comprehensive immigration reform and
Comprehensive.
a new,
Immigration
energy,
reform is a
bill.
joke.
We're getting
And,
away,
but it
Guard
got
the
hung up in the
border.
Senate.
we're
Guard
getting
the
away,
border.
let me interrupt
All
here,
right,
please.
he's
Let me interrupt here, please. We're getting away from what the original topic for this particular session was. And I'd like to close it out by making just one or two statements about the fair tax. If the fair tax were passed, the inversion problem would be solved, because corporations would be lining up like airplanes in a holding pattern to get into the United States. The inversion problem would be gone. The other statement I have is even when the Republicans had control of the House and the fair tax thing came up, I think, my opinion, and this goes for every politician, almost every politician that's in there now, is that I think one of the reasons they don't want to pass the fair tax is because they would lose control of the people through the tax code. All right, I want to change subjects now.
Well, can I say that, I agree with that, and, I believe that you will find that Republicans run quicker away from the fair tax or any change in the tax structure of this country, much quicker than, Democrats do.
Okay, let's
Well,
go,
right now you
let's,
have the power line.
let's go to another
Well,
subject. Another subject. Now, one of the things that I think we're all concerned about now is national defense and the military. One of the things, at least most of us veterans are concerned about, because I think we stay up pretty much on the issue, is President Obama is out to reduce the personnel, numbers of personnel, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, ships, aircraft, to below World War II levels. I think we as veterans think that's a big mistake, especially in view of the fact of what's going on in the world these days. We think, as veterans, a lot of our opinions is that we don't think that the president has as much respect for the military as he should. And let me give you a couple of examples why. VFW had its national conference this year in St. Louis. He didn't show. No show. The American Legion just had a conference, I believe it was in Charlotte. President did show there, and he gave some speeches, gave some remarks. The reception he got in areas where he was expecting applause was almost deathly silence, until somebody started to clap, and then there was a little bit of audience reaction. So he got a pretty cool reception at the Legion, American Legion. Some of the reductions are recurring. Been about 139 flag officers that have been, well, let's just say released from the military. Fired. But here's the thing that I'm more concerned about even than them, than those officers. The heart and soul, as I learned as an ensign when I got my commission in 1960, the heart and soul of the military is In the officers' corps, at the lieutenant to major or captain in major range. That's in the officers' corps. In the military, it's your 07s and 08s. They are the heart and soul of the military. One of the goals has been to get rid of 1,500 captains and majors, 2,000 E7s and E8s. That concerns me. Again, the reduction, the overall reduction of the armed forces to pre-World War II levels, as well as the hardware, concerns me. I think, is there anybody here that doesn't think ISIS is a worldwide threat? The president made some remarks about ISIS today and said, we're gonna bomb the hell out of them right now, and then we're gonna reduce them to the point where they're a manageable problem. ISIS wants to kill every one of you here. There's no doubt in my mind about that. What is a manageable problem to somebody who wants to kill you? I don't understand that logic.
I don't know, but the open borders letting them all in.
Well, we're gonna get to that as well. As part of the military thing, one of the things we're concerned about is security. And I think the security, everybody's concerned about the open border, especially in the southwest corner of the United States. I've also heard and I've read in several places throughout the internet that ISIS or Islamic representatives already have 35 training camps scattered throughout the United States. That should be of concern. As far as the border security is concerned, we all know about what I consider the illegal invaders. And the administration is not enforcing the current immigration laws to keep them out. And they just released, I don't know how many, 160 or 65 convicted felons from prison. This is not satisfactory. This has got nothing to do with keeping the United States secure. One of the things I asked Hank before we started was if he would address the defense issue, because especially he's part of the Armed Services Committee. So if you could address some of those issues, we can go on from there. We don't want to make it too long as we did the last subject. I've got a couple more I want to cover.
Okay. The Republican mantra has been to cut government. Do we agree? Anybody?
Yes.
Anybody? Huh?
It's needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should be
Cut,
cut
cut,
about
cut.
50%.
Okay, all right. Well, under the Republican 10-year budget passed in 2011, the Ryan Budget Control Act, the 2011 Budget Control Act, imposed cuts to every sector across the board, every sector of the federal budget, including defense. And so in keeping with the Ryan Budget Control Act of 2011 that Congress agreed to, Democrats under duress, but led by the Republicans, we agreed to keep the nation from going into default. So under duress, we agreed to the Ryan budget proposal.
They print money.
We agreed to the Ryan budget proposal,
Did it ever
which,
become law?
which,
Did it ever become
which,
law?
yes. And that is, we are still under the Ryan Budget Control Act right now. Now that is, and we are in it even to the extent that President Obama submitted a budget for 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015 in accordance with the Ryan budget, which incorporates those sequester amounts, those across-the-board spending cuts. This, in the 2014 budget passed by Congress, this is not passed by the president. The president is not responsible for setting these numbers. It's the Congress that sets those numbers. We set it $45 billion less than called for in the president's 2014 budget. Do you understand what I'm saying? So even though he is acting within the guidelines that have been imposed on him by the Ryan budget, they still took out $45 billion less than they funded $45 billion less than what the president requested. So no, I disagree. It is not President Obama that's trying to downsize the military. Now,
President Obama never got a budget passed.
well, you're wrong about that, sir.
I don't think so.
He's never gotten a budget passed that he presented. Congress always changes what the president presents.
Do we have a budget right now?
Yeah, we
No.
do.
Yeah.
We do. And and from a defense standpoint, it's $45 billion less than what the president proposed. So yes, these across the board cuts called sequestration, which were imposed by the Republicans. Now, everybody here votes Republican, right?
No.
I'm independent.
Well, okay, well, this is what the Republican-controlled House of Representatives imposed on the country. The Ryan Budget Control Act and sequestration and across-the-board cuts, even to our military, and despite the fact that the world is becoming more dangerous, okay? ISIS, and let's look at ISIS like this. Okay, we had Al Qaeda that on 9/11/2001 struck America inside the heartland. And what did we do in response to that? We invaded the place that was giving Al Qaeda sanctuary, Afghanistan. And what did we do when we, over that 3 or 4 month period after the invasion began, and we had Osama bin Laden in the mountains of Tora Bora? We had him holed up and trapped. What did we do? Well, as soon as 9/11 struck, that very day, Donald Rumsfeld and others, Dick Cheney, ordered that the intelligence apparatus and the defense apparatus find a connection between Saddam Hussein and Al Qaeda. And so it was on that basis that an invasion scenario was set up, and America let Osama bin Laden escape from the mountains of Tora Bora while we were busy preparing for a war in Iraq, which was an illegitimate and ill-advised war, but it was for the purpose of securing oil that could fund or that could so in other words, the oil. That's what Iraq was all about. We went in there, we took down the strong man, we disrupted the balance of security in that region, and it took us all the way to the time that Obama came into office before we actually started bearing down on Osama bin Laden and got him, ladies and gentlemen. President Obama got him. Okay.
So-
All right, so now once Osama bin Laden is eliminated, Al Qaeda starts to wither, but then out of that comes ISIS. Okay, so now if we take out the guy who is on top of ISIS, the one that likes to wear the $30,000 watch, and by the way, I think that's a good. I like the fact that that the guy is wearing a $30,000 watch, because that tells me that he can be bought. But we still want to get him. We want to neutralize him in the same way that we did Osama. But we cannot go into Syria. We cannot go back into Iraq with boots on the ground, and we're the only ones fighting. This is, ISIS is a different kind of animal. We definitely need to support the coalition that the president is putting together right now to deal with ISIS. The president might say, he said this morning that we were going to eliminate ISIS, and then came back this afternoon and said we'll reduce them to a manageable problem. Now, you know, I'm not going to quibble with what he said. I'll look to the fact that he focused on Osama bin Laden, got rid of him. We are not in a war right now in Syria because of President Obama. Now, there may be those who say we should have armed the rebels there 2 years ago. But the question is, who are the rebels? And are any of those rebels now fighting with ISIS? ISIS seized weapons that we had left on the ground for the Iraqi army, and the Iraqi army walked off, left those weapons, and so now ISIS has our weapons. Now, if we had flooded the place 2 years ago with weaponry, then we would have even more weaponry arrayed against us or against the forces that are our friends in Iraq now. And so it's unfortunate, however, that the situation has developed. And you can always look back and say, well, I should have done this, I should have done that. Well, I'm looking at the fact that America is still withdrawn from the war in Iraq, which was an unjust and unnecessary and very costly war, which we're still paying the price of now. You can't blame ISIS on President Obama. You can blame it on the disruption of the balance of power that was in that area before they took Saddam down. When they took Saddam down, then all hell broke loose. And we're seeing the results of that now. The president is trying his best to clean up the mess. And the mess is just getting messier. And so, you know, ISIS, we're going to have to make sure that we have the intel that we need. We can't just go out and bomb every location just because we think ISIS may be there. We have to be very targeted in terms of what, where, and whom. And then we have the situation with Syria, where Assad has a very formidable defensive capability. He's a very formidable defensive capability. So if we send our air power into, if we invade a sovereign nation with our air power without permission, then we're subject to our fighter, our planes and other assets being shot down. And so now, so what do we do? Should we get permission from Syria before we enter their airspace to help alleviate a threat to them as well as us? Doesn't it make sense that we would think about working with the regime that is still in power in Syria? you know, everybody is saying, no, we can't work with Assad, but I believe that, that there's an opportunity to establish some stability in Syria. Now, you know, I mean, I'm all for peace and everything like that, freedom for everybody, but everybody's not ready for freedom. And so it's clear to me that the situation in Syria, the people were not able to wrestle power away from Assad. And now we've got a situation where the entire place is looking to blow up. So I think it's reasonable to think that we need to be putting out some entrees to the regime in Syria to enable us to be able to help them while helping ourselves. And then the same thing exists with the Iranians. Everybody talks about, well, we can't work with the Iranians. They're trying to build a nuclear weapon and they're doing this and doing that. We need to be speaking with the Iranians. They are Shias. ISIS are Sunnis. The Sunnis are the ones that are threatening everyone. Not all Sunnis, but ISIS is Sunni based, and so is Saudi Arabia, by the way. A big, large country, lots of people, lots of money. I'm not in favor of us going over and putting boots on the ground, our people, when the stakeholders over there are not doing the same thing. And so we have a lot of thinking and a lot of negotiating, and we have to be very careful with, we can't go into Syria like we went into Iraq, and we can't go back into Iraq again and get bogged down. And we'll get bogged down in Syria if we're not careful. So we've got to forge the kinds of combinations. We got to forge new combinations of countries that are funding and that are fighting this threat. Because the threat is not only to the United States of America, it's to Europe, it's to
That New World Order.
it's to the Middle East, and so so it's a complicated issue. I hate that Republican politicians who have been opposing every move that the president makes.
It's both the Democrats and the Republicans. Don't just point at them, it's both of you.
No, Democrats are not using politics in foreign affairs. I have never seen it like it is now with Republicans. Because of this Democratic president, they are playing politics with our foreign policy, and it makes us less safe for them to do it. But the hatred that some of the folks have for this president
Because it's pushing socialism.
runs so deep that they just can't help themselves, and so they can't see any good in what he has done. And so they don't understand how you need to be deliberative as opposed to being a cowboy, ready to gunsling, and you apply 1800 solution to a 21st century problem. Things are much too complicated to proceed with a trigger-happy kind of mentality. And so I appreciate our president for first of all, getting us out of Iraq. We are not far away from being out of Afghanistan. If we can't get a security agreement signed, which grants amnesty to our servicemen and women over in Afghanistan. Like, we couldn't get that done in Iraq. That's why we don't have any troops over there. This Malachi is now out of office. All they had to do was negotiate with us on that point, and we'd have had troops over there. Now, we're getting ready to come out of Afghanistan. We haven't gotten that agreement signed yet, but both both candidates for the presidency, when Karzai steps down, have agreed that they're going to negotiate an agreement, and so we will leave a residual force in Afghanistan to protect the gains that have been made and to kind of shore up their burgeoning military, and hopefully we can leave the place better than when we found it. And I believe that's the case with Afghanistan. Iraq, we made a mess, and it's still a mess, and we're trying to clean it up.
Okay,
Well, let's get us on track. Let me just ask one quickie. You know, with ISIS possibly coming across the border, I was asked by,
Possibly.
yeah, well, possibly getting enough, but I was asked by a sheriff person, not necessarily this county, so, that how come, Department of Defense, or the administration now is trying to get weapons that the sheriff's office currently have, military weapons, that would help defeat it, that came into Lithonia or Stone Mountain. How come they're taking those weapons, and for what reason?
Yeah, buddy, you know, we turn military surplus property that we may very well have to use, or we may have to make sure that the Kurds, let's say, have the number of Humvees and MRAPs and other weaponry that they can use to fight ISIS on the ground.
Sure see ISIS driving a bunch of it.
Huh?
Sure see ISIS driving a bunch of that stuff now.
Yeah, and we need to we need to get the same kind of power on the ground with somebody else operating it. But instead, what we've done is we've declared it surplus, and then we allow the stuff to be transferred to local law enforcement. Now, will we need it to fight another war? Should we mothball it instead of giving it away? Well, we know that if we mothball it, we wouldn't be able to purchase anymore from the defense industry. So therefore, you can get rid of it somehow, and then when we have to have the weaponry again, we'll go back into producing it.